This is Fellowship. Fellowship's a tabletop role-playing game, that's what D&D is, about a group of heroes banding together to stop a seemingly unbeatable overlord. Sound familiar? Well, of course it does. That's the plot of like every RPG campaign ever. And this book has solved all of my problems, or at least a bunch of my role-playing game problems. What are those problems? Well, that's kind of the whole point of this video. Let's skip the warm-up and go right into our 1-rep max. In order to tell you what my first problem was and how Fellowship really fixes it incredibly well, we have to go back in time to about 5 years ago. I was DMing my first ever 5th edition campaign. It was like a homebrew mess that was set in some woods with some elves, and I thought the main 2 elven NPCs were so cool. One of them was named Yorvith. He was an elven ranger with one eye who was a bit of a rebel. I was pretty much ripping off Yorvith from The Witcher 2, and it was his sister. And I thought they were the coolest NPCs on the face of the planet, and I wanted my players to care about them so freaking badly. And the entire time we were running this segment of the adventure, they seemed to be obsessed with a random blacksmith who I hadn't even prepped. Now as a DM, I was kind of taken aback because I had prepped these really cool characters that they should have cared about, and I couldn't understand why they wouldn't like these super cool characters. I then became resigned to the fact that my players just will never care about any NPCs that I come up with, and they'll never truly get engaged with the game. Maybe I had shitty players, but I don't know, they were my friends. I wanted to play games with them. Let's skip ahead a year. So this is 4 years ago. I'm playing in my first ever Powered by the Apocalypse campaign. The game is Masks, and it's being run by my friend Riley. And in the session 0, she asked myself and the other players to come up with at least 2 superheroes that existed in the world. I came up with the Platinum Pump, basically a super yoked, strong bodybuilder who is just covered in like platinum skin. During the actual campaign, anytime the Platinum Pump came up, I was so stoked because it was a character that I helped make. Now you probably know where I'm going with this because I've made a bunch of videos talking about this subject in the past, but if you let your players participate in the world building, they're going to care about the world so much more. And Fellowship codifies that. It has a bunch of questions, systemic rules to let your players contribute to the world building. So in the session 0 rules, and yes, this book has guidelines on how to run a really good session 0, it has questions like tell us about your hero, tell us why you're your people's champion, and then tell us 3 facts about your people. And my personal favorite, it has the players come up with rumors about each other's races and peoples that their people hold. So if you have a player who's playing as the halfling, they get to decide what halflings think about maybe the elves or the dwarves or the humans. Because of this, your players are going to feel so much more connected with the world that they're playing in, and everyone's just going to have a way better time. We all knew I was going to be talking about that. Now, my second problem that I've had playing and running RPGs over the last few years is one that most people don't really think about. And once again, I have to tell you a little bit of a story. In 2020, I started a 5th edition campaign with all of my really good friends from college. We played this campaign for almost a year, only missing 2 weeks. So, I mean, that's like 50 sessions. Back to back to back to back to back, which if you have ever played a tabletop role-playing game, you know that is like unbelievable. And if you're that guy in my comments who's like, my group has played nonstop every single week for the past 16 years, you are in the minority. However, after about a year, the game started to fall apart. More and more players were dropping sessions, the enthusiasm was gone, and I honestly didn't even want to prep or run the sessions by the end of it, and we ended up calling it. The thing was, the game didn't seem to really be going anywhere. We had finished Lost Mines of Phandelver, and then I was just kind of coming up with random quests to throw in front of them, just procedurally making things as they went along with no real end in sight and no real sign of progress being made. When you've been playing for 6 months and the campaign doesn't really seem to be going anywhere, yeah, you lose steam. Now, maybe this is just a skill issue on my part. I am far from being a perfect dungeon master. But what Fellowship does that I think is really cool is that it has a codified end. The campaign ends when the Fellowship kills the Overlord. Furthermore, there are very clear milestones for the players that let them know that they are progressing one step closer to killing the Overlord. Over the course of a campaign, the players are going to be saving communities, which grant them a bunch of boons or give them new companions or weaken the Overlord. And they're going to be seizing sources of power from the Overlord, which once again weakens the Overlord. And once the players have captured all of the Horcruxes, I mean sources of power, then the Overlord is mortal and they can go kill them, and then the game is over. Before, I didn't think that a campaign having a definite end was something so big until my game fell apart. And now the idea of having that finish line so that you know this game will probably take 16 sessions or maybe 16 weeks of my time, it helps just plan and be an adult. By the way, vaguely related to that, another bonus problem that I have is that I can't stand it when players just waste a session doing nothing but like dicking around in town and shopping. And Fellowship corrects that by having a rule in place where the Overlord gets to progress their plans and obtain sources of power for all the time that players are dicking around in town. And I really like that and appreciate that because they lose progress when they dick around. That's how it should be. Anyways, I have one final problem for you guys that I think Fellowship solves. In order to explain this problem, we have to go back in time to when I was doing an Adventures League session at my friendly local game store. One of the things that I can't stand about like 5th edition and Pathfinder is how easy it is to just fall into a slog of just you're locked in, you wait for your turn, you roll to attack, roll damage, or you miss or whatever, and it goes back and forth and nothing really happens. In this particular case, I was playing Adventures League and my party was locked into like a troll or something like that. The casters had pretty much expended all of their spell slots, so they couldn't do anything, and then the marshals, which is me and a couple of my friends, were just going back and forth with this like ogre or troll or whatever, just rolling our d20. Okay, does an 18 hit? Yes, it does. Roll damage. Cool. 7. Ogre goes. Okay, does a 15 hit? No. Okay, back and forth, back and forth. Just mind-numbing gameplay. And that was the first strike that I really had against 5th edition, where I was like, okay, this. Now, Dungeon World, which is my favorite role-playing game, isn't immune from this either, even though it tries to promote more cinematic combat. There have been times when I've been running Dungeon World and a combat encounter just turns into a hack and slash slog of just the player's turn, hack and slash. Okay, you know, they hit you, what are you gonna do? I'm gonna strike them, hack and slash, back and forth, back and forth. Fellowship sort of rectifies this by the way that you can take down an enemy. It's pretty simple. There's a move called Finish Them, and if you want to use Finish Them, you have to be in a place of advantage over your opponent. Now, advantage is almost entirely within the fiction. So sneaking up on an enemy that doesn't see you, you can then roll to finish them. And if you succeed on the roll, you kill them or, you know, do whatever. But the thing is, you can't roll it unless you have advantage. Now, your teammates can give you advantage by using the keeping them busy move, and they have to come up with a reason why they're keeping them busy. So maybe if there's like an ogre, your teammate runs up to it and starts engaging it in a brawl or whatever and manages to succeed on that, then you would have advantage and you can roll to finish them. Or maybe you have like one of your allies go to keep them busy and then they injure your ally or something, and your ally is like screaming and the opponent has never really killed someone before, and then that gives you a point of advantage over them, and you want to be like Naruto and you hit them with the talk no jutsu, and then you roll really well and you finish them, and then you can talk to them about the error of their ways, and then they become your best friend. You could also do that. But the moral of the story is the game codifies a way to make combat more interesting and rely more on teamwork. Yes, I know in my previous examples, if I was a better DM in Dungeon World or if my DM was better in D&D, I wouldn't have this issue, but those games allow the wiggle room for that to happen. Whereas in Fellowship, the way that the game is structured, it sort of forces you to make encounters more interesting. And it also gives you a bunch of tips in the book of how to make really interesting encounters. But that might be a whole nother video. This one's getting pretty long. And you of course know that when I say that the video is getting pretty long, it means we're gonna end the video. So if you like this video, you should click like right here and watch my most recent video where I talk about a bunch of RPGs that I'm hyped for. I think I'm the most hyped for Fellowship because I am actually running this with people on my Discord server. Anyways, thank you so much for watching.